and I am the Director of Business Investments and Partnerships with the Metro New York chapter of the National Black MBA Association. And on behalf of our chapter president, Norville Barrington, and our chapter board, welcome to the first event celebrating Black History Month 2022. Fashion, beauty, and the power of Black, featuring Dexter King and Betty Teshome of the Estee Lauder companies. Today's conversation is just another example of the Estee Lauder company's ongoing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We thank them for their partnership with our chapter, as it is greatly appreciated. Now, to our members who are exploring career opportunities with the Estee Lauder companies, please join our chapter for an upcoming virtual career fair on Thursday, February 24th, where you will have the opportunity to have a live interview with Estee Lauder companies. Fabulous. Also, please stay tuned for additional announcements after tonight's conversation. And lastly, we encourage you to use the Q&A feature to get your questions answered. They are really excited to be a part of this and answer any questions that you may have. Now, without further ado, I have the honor of introducing our moderator for today's session, Betty Teshome. Betty Teshome is a director at the Estee Lauder companies in the New Business Development Group, otherwise the M&A Group. Betty has over 10 years of experience in investment banking, private equity, and public accounting across different industries. And prior to joining ELC, Betty worked at Evercore in mergers and acquisitions, advising buyout and growth equity investments in the technology sector. Betty has an MBA with a concentration in analytical finance from the University of Chicago, both, and a BA in accounting from Virginia Tech, as well as her CPA in the New York State. Now, I would like to welcome Betty Teshome to the virtual stage.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Vanetta. I could not be more delighted to be here today. As she said, my name is Betty Teshome, and I'm a director of mergers and acquisitions at the Estee Lauder companies. In my role, I look for investments and acquisition opportunities to add to our portfolio of prestige beauty brands. My coverage is global and across all categories, which includes skincare, makeup, fragrance, and hair care. I have to say, I really love my job because one, it's really fun. And two, I have brilliant colleagues such as Dexter King, who I am so thrilled to be talking to today. And as Vanetta said, this event is really meant to be a community dialogue. So we'll have time at the end for questions. So please engage, put your comments in the chat room. And I'll now give a quick bio on Dexter before we jump into our fireside chat. So Dexter King is a highly accomplished leader with deep experience in marketing and strategy in the luxury and beverage industries. He joined Tom Ford Beauty in 2015 as a strategy consultant and was appointed executive director of global strategy and international business development a year later, where he led the creation of our global distribution strategy, which unlocked channel that diversified the brand's growth and consumer profile. In 2018, he was appointed vice president of global strategy and fragrance marketing, where he led the pivot of signature and private blend to a luxury big bet strategy, resulting in one of the biggest fragrance launches in the brand's history. In 2019, Dexter was appointed vice president and general manager of international and global strategy, leading the creation of our global channel strategy and partnering with the regional leaders to drive the brand's overseas business to over $1 billion in retail sales. In 2021, effective January 1st, so a little over a year ago, Dexter was promoted to senior vice president and general manager of international and global strategy for Tom Ford Beauty. This is truly a remarkable career trajectory. And prior to joining the Estee Lauder companies, Dexter held various marketing and strategy roles of increasing responsibility at Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Moet Hennessy, Diageo, and McKinsey. He also holds an MBA from Fuqua School of Business at Duke University and a BA in economics from University of Virginia. All I have to say is wow. And thank you so much for being here, Dexter. And without further ado, I want to start with if we could get him on the screen, I want to start with getting to know a little bit more about you and the man behind this very impressive resume. So Dexter, can you tell us, where are you from? How did you grow up? And how did you end up in New York City?
Well, first, thank you for that introduction. It makes me sound actually pretty cool. But I was very impressed with your introduction. I was like, wow, all these investment banks and group schools. And I didn't like the Virginia Tech part so much.
Oh my God.
All right, but I won't give you too much trouble about that. So where am I from? I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania originally. I grew up in inner city Philadelphia. So the Jazzy Jeff part of Philadelphia, not the Will Smith part of Philadelphia. If those references matter to you, I don't know, depending on your age. So I grew up, I'm not going to tell you my age, but I grew up at a time where inner cities were really inner cities, the 70s and 80s. So it was definitely a time of transition. And looking back, it was a time of a lot of turmoil. So I grew up there. I was very lucky to have two parents. I grew up in inner city. And I don't know how deep you want to go with the whole background and how I grew up. No, you don't want to go that deep. It's an interesting time. Looking through the lens of today and all the turmoil we're going through today, looking back, there are some similarities with the transition of inner cities. And this was prior to gentrification and all these different things that are happening now. So growing up then was tough. It was really, really difficult. But I was lucky to have two parents that was very focused on education, even though they didn't have a high level of education themselves. They were very intelligent and very smart. And so they helped me focus and drive and stay focused and get myself out of that situation. So how did I wind up in New York City? I've always loved New York City. It's always been that kind of dream place I wanted to live. I actually don't live in New York City anymore. However, when I first moved there, I was changing jobs. I was transitioning from working at Coca-Cola in Atlanta, and I was coming to Moet Hennessy to lead their Hennessy Cognac brand, and I moved to New York City to take that job. And I moved to Brooklyn, actually. So Brooklyn I moved there because all my friends lived there. So that's where you move, and the whole Fort Greene, Clinton Hill area, where I actually got to see gentrification in real time. It was something you didn't actually. It was a very fascinating time to be there. This is around 2003, 2004. So this is really when Brooklyn was starting the transition. So it wasn't your Biggie's Brooklyn anymore. All those places he described in his songs were not the same as they were when he was there. So you got to see it in real time. It's interesting. And then eventually moved to New Jersey. Doesn't matter where in New Jersey, just moved to New Jersey. So that's how I wound up.
I love that. It's always interesting hearing how people ended up. But I mean, and you gave us a lot of information. We can back solve for your age now, but I'm kidding. So you joined Tom Ford in 2015 as a strategy consultant, and now your title is Senior Vice President and General Manager of International and Global Strategy for Tom Ford Beauty. Can you share a little about your earlier career experiences? Can you tell us how you ended up at the Estee Lauder companies and what your role was prior to joining us?
Yeah, it may be interesting to kind of start, maybe go back to business school, because that's where a lot of people, National Black MBA. First of all, thank you for having me. My history with the National Black MBA Association goes back many years. Again, I will not tell you how many. But I remember during business school going to the conference year after year, going back to recruit with Coca-Cola, going back to recruit when I was at Diageo. So I've had some, that organization has always been very, very good to me, and I've always appreciated it. So thank you very much for having me. So when I was in business school, I went back and I don't know if they still have it, but Procter & Gamble had this program where even though you hadn't started business school, you could go there for a week. It was like a brand management summer camp. And you applied like you were getting a regular internship. If you got in, you went to Procter & Gamble for a week, and they taught you about brand management for that week. And at the end of that week, you actually got to interview for an internship. So I actually went into my first year of business school with an internship from Procter & Gamble by the middle of my first term. And that week at P&G actually introduced me to, and it was for minority students, so I'm not sure if it's still in existence, but it was a great program. That program introduced me to brand management and the principles of brand management and Procter & Gamble. So that's how I wound up there. And I spent my summer at P&G in brand on like Head and Shoulders. And then after business school, I went to Coca-Cola in Atlanta and worked on brands like Diet Coke, Dasani, Cherry Coke, Fruitopia, which doesn't even exist anymore. But it did introduce me to what I loved, which was image-based marketing. And so that's an interesting thread throughout my career, is that I worked on brands that are heavily image-based marketing type brands. So keep that in mind. Eventually after that, I transitioned to working on Hennessy Cognac at Moët Hennessy. That introduced me to luxury and luxury marketing. And at being part of LVMH, they taught you how to do luxury and pricing and really the principles of how you drive a brand at this level were instilled in me working at Moët Hennessy as part of LVMH. I remember them taking me to cognac and teaching me how to make cognac and all those different things. So it was really a great introduction to luxury marketing. And then I worked at Diageo for a couple of years in their reserve brands group, which they have sometimes and they get rid of it and then they bring it back. It's essentially their version of luxury marketing within the Diageo organization. Then I left there and I started my own business for a few years. So you can probably start adding up the years as I talk. So I imported my own wines and spirits into the US, so vodka, tequila, wines. So I did that for a while. That business didn't work out. And so this was interesting because at that point I realized, I'd been working in beverage for a long time. I'd done some image, done some luxury. But I looked at the jobs that were available as I was looking to transition. I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt. The business didn't work. I just got married, had a kid on the way. Like, it was a heady time. And I looked and the whole world had become digital. The whole world had become global. And I realized that I was lacking in skills. At least, obviously. I had the skills, but it wasn't on paper, if you will. So that's what led me to apply and go to McKinsey. I thought that going to a management consulting firm or strategy firm would give me the global, it would diversify my background. It would give me a global perspective, and it would completely change how people viewed me in the marketplace. Luckily, they were looking for people who were experienced hires to put in front of their clients. So we were all looking for each other, if you will. I didn't know at the time. And it turned out that even though I was at McKinsey for like a year and a half, not very long, it completely changed the branding of Dexter King, if you will. All of a sudden, I was thought of as a strategy person. I could do all these different jobs, and so business development. So it really changed the trajectory of my career. The next question you had about opportunities, that's one of the biggest things that enabled me to pivot and go global and go to more of a strategy type role. And so that's it. After that, I left my own strategy, and then I wound up taking, actually what wound up was supposed to be a temporary role at Tom Ford. It was only supposed to be a 4-month assignment when I started, but I did really well. I connected with the brand president, Guillaume Giselle, and they kept extending my assignment, extending it. And after a year, they brought me on permanent, and then I started moving up in the organization. So that's the somewhat long story short, I guess, version of my career, the Cliff Notes version. I don't even know if they have Cliff Notes anymore. That still exists, Cliff Notes?
I haven't used it in many years. So, wow, that's incredible. I think you couldn't have predicted that your career would sort of pan out this way. So it's really interesting, all the different opportunities that sort of came your way that you were able to leverage and, create the career that you have now is really impressive. Now, I would love to get, a deeper understanding of what we like to call how you slay in your day-to-day. So, you have a big title, very jealous. You oversee the brand's global strategy as well as, the international business development for the brand. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about what you do on a day-to-day basis for the company at large, if that's even possible? I'm sure you don't know days ever alike, but if you could just give us a little insight into your day, like your day-to-day.
Sure. I think first, it's a super long title, right? It's a little obnoxious, but it's cool. And so let's talk about each one. The international. So the international part is probably actually they're fairly easy to explain. I essentially lead the commercial side of the business for Tom Ford Beauty in their entire international business. And Tom Ford Beauty is approximately 85% international. Only 15% of the business is actually in the United States. So I'm charged with the commercial strategy. That means the commercial channels, retailers, distribution, and ensuring that the regions execute our strategies and our brands in the way that we want to across the world. So 85% of the business, international, that's the international part of the job. The global strategy piece is different. That's more of a future planning job. So essentially, I'm in charge of running the strategic process for the brand and helping the brand plan itself out for the next 3 years. So in 3 years, where do we want to be, the goals, the strategies across channels, consumers, regions, and categories. So that's the rough version of what my job is and what the titles mean. On a day-to-day basis, it could be anything from, let me give you an example today. Today might be interesting. So today, it was a virtual market visit to our European region. So I had to do a speech in front of them about the strategy and presenting to all of our affiliates in our European, we call it EMEA, that's our Europe, Middle East, Africa region. Then I had a future planning on the pricing of our fragrance business and what that should be in the future. The next meeting would have been, we have a launch that is a little delayed, and how do we mitigate the issues of that. The next one would have been finishing up our new update to our global distribution strategy and updating that. And those are just a few examples of just today, the types of things I was tasked with doing today. So it was a pretty full day. So hopefully that gives you a good idea for the things I do on a daily basis.
Wow, I mean, it must be challenging, right? Like 85% of your team is international. How have you navigated working with an international team sitting in New York? Can you give us like how you were able to navigate that?
Yeah, I think empathy is probably, it sounds kind of hokey, but I'll tell you what I mean. One, really understanding and listening to the regions, what their concerns are, what they want, what's driving their business, understanding what's going on in the marketplace, understanding geopolitical issues, understanding the economic environment is crucial to helping and leading the business. But I would say the key thing is really understanding the different cultures and ways of working enough to be empathetic to how they ask you, what they're asking for, and why they want what they're asking for. And then if you can do that, you can work internationally. Even though I'm actually, in their eyes, I'm actually pretty American. Like they're like, you're as American as they come.
Yeah.
But I'm still able to lead and drive because I think they get where I'm coming from, and I'm able to explain it and break it down in very simple terms. But I also am very empathetic to where they're coming from and what they need and what their situations are. And to be quite honest, because of my time at McKinsey, I learned a little different way of working, which is to treat the regions as my clients. Okay. So I treat them as my clients, which you probably understand working in investment banking. That principle and that dynamic, it's not 100%, but that dynamic definitely helps as well. So I think that's probably what it is. So I always tell people, like, you come out of business school and you teach all these hardcore things, how to analyze, pricing, accounting. I'm sure you learned all different ways of doing analysis on companies. But in reality, in the working world, it's really the soft stuff that kills you. It's really the relationships, communication, leadership style, the way you work with people, the way you deal with people. Those are the things that enable you to really accelerate your career as much, if not more so, than the hardcore skills.
I couldn't agree more. That actually kind of dovetails into my next question, which is, I would love to learn a little bit about your leadership style and how you've developed as a leader throughout your career, and what, in your opinion, makes a great leader.
I love this question, but it's a hard one to answer. My leadership style, I think, is one that is not, I'm not a micromanager. I'm not interested in micromanaging. I'm not all about that at all. What I do like and what I do want to do is hire and manage phenomenal, amazing people. So while I may be super hardcore about the kind of people I work with and who I bring in, once I have them, I trust them and allow them to do what they do in a great way. And I think people really, so what do I mean by that? And I think people really appreciate this. So I'm happy to walk you through the strategy, what we want to do, how we want to do it, but I'm not going to be too prescriptive because I want you to bring your level of expertise and creativity to the role. And also what I try to do is allow my people to shine. I think the other leadership style that I have is as long as you shine, I shine. Where some people say, I take your work, I make it mine, and that helps me kind of move up. Like if I had you on my team, Betty, for instance, you would be the one that always presented your work. You would be the one that was in front of senior management talking about the accomplishments you made. To me, the development of people and the development of talent is what makes a great leader. If I can't develop great talent and eventually essentially create a succession plan where I can replace myself with someone else as good or better, then I'm not a great leader. And that's how I choose to lead, and that's how I like to lead. What I've learned, one of the biggest lessons I've learned recently is actually to not let yourself be gaslit into making terrible decisions. And you smile, so you get what I mean. You might get what I mean by this. In my international role, because I work with regions and I'm like the conduit for all the regional input and then also the conduit for the global input and have to translate for both parties, I'm also the triage for a lot of complaints. And a lot of times if you let the complaining and the passion that people have and the way they communicate prompt you into overreacting or reacting emotionally or reacting as emotionally as the complaint is being delivered to you, you can make the wrong decisions. And you can be gaslit into making terrible decisions. So I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned recently is to trust myself, trust in my instincts, choose to be the kind of leader I want to be and not let myself be gaslit into making terrible decisions or change how I lead. And I think that is crucial as well.
Yeah, I mean, I want you to be my boss. That is my favorite kind of leader, and it's really amazing that you are this type of leader and you've adopted such an amazing way of like nurturing your team and supporting them. But is this how you've always been? I'm just curious to know if throughout your career this is something that you had to adopt and change and learn, or if this is just something that you had innately in you from the beginning of your career.
I think I've always had it. I think where I'm lucky is with the millennials and people of your age group are I'm being very serious, are one of the best things that ever happened to me, because the way you like to be led and like to be taught and like to be developed is exactly the way I like to do things. So I think in some ways, as I made myself to this part of my career, the generation that's coming up next appreciates this leadership style and enjoys it. So it's made me a better leader because I have them to lead. So I can't tell if I'm stuttering or if I'm moving around on the screen. So let me know if you need me to fix anything or
you're perfect.
Fine. Okay, great.
Yeah, that's fine. Moving gears, I want to ask you, can you talk about your biggest challenge at ESC and how you've navigated it? Obviously, you sort of alluded to the challenges that comes with managing an international team, but what has been the biggest challenge for you specifically at the Estee Lauder companies and how you were able to navigate that?
Well, how much do I tell you, right?
5 minutes for this question.
Give me 5 minutes, okay. The biggest challenge at ELC, and I can't give too much. One day I'll talk to you offline about this. We'll talk, okay. And I'll share some cultural insights that I have. I would say the biggest challenge day to day is, again, this concept of being gaslit and reacting emotionally to things that are happening around you. I think sometimes we need to sit back and realize that we're working on these incredible brands. We're selling makeup and fragrance and skincare and not COVID vaccines, right? So yes, it's important and it's essential, and the company's amazing and incredible. But at the end of the day, we need to kind of take a step back and really realize just how lucky and blessed we are to work in this kind of organization, doing the things we do day to day. What that helps me with is making better decisions and kind of taking a step back. So, you know what? I'll give you an interesting lesson. I think one just popped into my head, which is not everything that's sent to you urgently has to be responded to in an urgent manner. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and one of the biggest things I do day to day. That's a challenge, because you'll get emails, oh, I need this, or this is wrong, or why is this terrible, or why didn't you do this, or this is late. And the inclination is to react and type back or respond. at the same level. Whereas I think the best thing to do is to take a step back, take a breath, think about it, and take a beat, maybe 15 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe even a few hours, and reply when you're actually at a much more even level and a steady emotional state. And I think that allows you to make better decisions and not to escalate because you're trying to match the energy that's being put out to you. I hope that makes sense.
No, it totally does. I mean, coming from banking, that's something that I had to actively learn to sort of unlearn because everything is ASAP. And just even taking 10, 15 minutes to sort of take a breather will allow you to think a lot more clearly and just come out with a better answer. So it's something that I definitely had to unlearn.
Oh, there are many times where I just literally get up from my computer and walk away, go get a drink.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you come back, it's like, no, the world's still spinning, and you know, the sun is out, and okay, let's sit now let's answer this question. Now let's, you know.
I agree. That's actually, it's funny because I was going to ask you next, what is the best part of coming to work every day, or rather turning on your Zoom camera, but just something, you know, we talked about the challenge, but obviously the flip side is there's a lot of great things about working here and things that you're very passionate about. So what's the best part about just your work every day?
I get to work on this incredible brand. This is insane. People pay me to work on this high-end luxury business where we sell these incredibly complex and beautiful fragrances and these beautiful cosmetics and this great skincare. And everybody you work with is normally when we're in office, they're dressed beautifully and nice. And you know, Tom Ford is leading this brand and he's creating these incredible creative things. And this is what I work on. This is what I do for a living. And so even my daughter sometimes she's like, Daddy, this is what you do? Like, she also thinks all I do is PowerPoint presentations. So that's all I know. You're doing another presentation? Yes, I'm doing it. So I think it's just the brand and working in that business. And Estee Lauder, you know, like any company has its issues, but I think even during COVID, I've seen how much they've tried to be a more caring organization in how they've handled COVID, how they've treated us, how they've allowed the choice, and try to be much more thoughtful about how they engage with us during the pandemic. So I think we've seen the best of the organization in that particular way. So that's the best part. I mean, getting to work on this brand is really incredible. It's really a beautiful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, Tom Ford is pretty sexy. I have to admit. So, you know, I mean, the beauty industry, we're in the business of making people feel good and just, you know, about beauty. And our industry is obviously, you know, ever evolving, and it's really fascinating to watch. One thing for certain is that, you know, the modern beauty consumer is continuously demanding inclusivity, and rightfully so. Unfortunately, there are still many blind spots in the beauty industry, from color diversity to even disability inclusive packaging. Fortunately, and you know, despite sort of the shortcomings in the industry, Tom Ford was even recently spotlighted by Vogue Business for being one of the few, you know, outliers that cater to a more diverse audience in color cosmetics. So, which is really awesome. I'd like to think you had something to do with it. Can you tell us, you know, what are some sort of critical milestones you've reached regarding diversity and inclusivity, and what are the key sort of learnings for the brand in doing that and being recognized for it?
Well, I think first we start from a base of strength, meaning Tom Ford himself. Tom Ford has always been someone who has been very inclusive and diverse in how he markets his brand, the fashion business, even the photography. You can even tell that he really truly appreciates it by the way he photographs people, and the lighting and what he uses. It's not, you can tell he's not just checking the box. Like, he really just sees the world this way, and this is how he does things. So I'm not going to speak for him too much, but when you're starting from that level of, he already believes that and does that, and just as a matter of course. There's a show called Insecure. Have you ever watched that show, Insecure?
No, never heard of it. Are you kidding? Of course.
Okay. So
yeah.
One of the brilliant things about that show is how they light. Think about that. We're talking about how they light and film black skin. Mm-hmm. And we noticed, right? We looked at it like, oh my God, they're filmed so well, and they film dark skin beautifully. And that's something we noticed because it's not done very well very often, right? Tom is the same. I think Tom, if you look at his photography and how he shoots dark skin and shoots inclusive and diverse models, it's the same type of thing. You can see the beauty you can see the skill and the care that goes into it. So that's where you're starting. I think one of the biggest accomplishments we've done is realize that we needed to make some changes still. We weren't perfect. One of the first things was in doing better with our shade diversity in our foundations. And so it's hard because a lot of our business is driven in China. So the shades that you would need to drive your business in China is very different than the shades you would need in the US or Europe or India or Africa. But we still mandate in our flagship doors that they must carry all 40 shades of the foundation. So we allow for tailoring based on certain doors, but in the flagships, we mandate that all 40 must be present. So that level of not only having the inclusivity, but demanding that it be there despite the local market conditions is something I think we've done really well. The second thing we've done, which is really analyzed, another thing more product focused, is analyzed our lip shade range. And you realize that the lip shade range didn't always work for all skin tones across all undertones, right? So analyzing that lip shade range, re-engineering it, relaunching new lip shades, again, not necessarily because you're going to drive the majority of your sales, but that long tail is where the inclusivity and diversity comes from in doing that. So those are two things I think that we've done recently to address it from a product, a hardcore beauty product standpoint. The other things is obviously diversity in hiring, requiring diverse candidates, and requiring that they're put forth. And there's no standard lowering for the diverse because you don't have to. There are great diverse candidates out there. As we know, we're here at National Black MBA, who are out there. People like yourself, people like someone else, just hardcore, amazing, incredible people who just so happen to be, right? But you'd be surprised at how difficult it may be in certain circumstances unless you demand and require that that is something that must be put to you. Because it may be, and so it requires a change. So let's talk about recruiting for a second. It requires you to change how you do things and maybe go to a different school, maybe go to a different organization, maybe engage with different people in different levels. So that's different than how people is normally done. And I think demanding it forces change. So I think those three things, I would say, we've done other things as well, but those three things, one from a product standpoint and then one from an internal recruiting standpoint, we've done to really drive inclusivity and diversity.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, the learning here is also that it's good for your bottom line. Like this is a very high value demographic that isn't normally targeted, but you know, they're more loyal, they spend more. So I love that you guys started doing that before it became a trend. And it's wonderful that you're being recognized for it in the industry.
Well, I think not only just the industry, but also I think the consumer knows. And so I think they know that where Tom has been, and they know who he's what his DNA, and they appreciate it. You can see it in who wears the clothes, who you know, even who buys the products, who buys our fragrances. So you see it across the world. So, and also I think I want to talk about something else that's really a key thing about my job, and I want to bring this to head. Inclusivity means different things in different parts of the world. So I know today we're at the National Black MBA, it's the New York chapter, we're talking somewhat about us, but in my international role, I have to then translate what inclusivity means in Asia. It's very different. What inclusivity means in the Middle East or Africa or Europe or Latin America. So not just, this brand not only has to understand the US, North America version of that, but it also has to take that concept and apply it globally, and then allow the regions to adapt that concept to their local realities. So when you think about my job, that's another thing that I didn't necessarily do some of this thing that Tom Ford did, but the translation of it international and helping the regions translate what that means, that is definitely something I've helped to do and drive across the organization.
That's really important. Localizing it and catering your message to the local audience is how you build brand loyalty and retain them. So, I mean, it's very evident in like your products and in your messaging that you listen to your regions and work with your affiliates very closely. So one thing that you dealt with is COVID, a little curveball that you had with your business. So, you know, with the onset of COVID, we obviously found ourselves in a position to sort of rapidly shift the way we work while also sort of managing how we transition to drive sales through digital channels. Can you talk a little bit about how you helped the brand pivot during COVID and the part you played. Tell us the real, because I'm sure.
Okay, the real.
Yeah.
One, I was very lucky because the brand I told you is 85% international, and we actually have a huge business in China with the Chinese consumer. Not only in China, but also when they travel to other parts of the world. Why is this important? Because initially, when COVID first hit, obviously the world ground to a halt and everything, and we were all like, oh my God, what are we going to do? There's no money coming in, no one's selling anything, everything's closed, what's happening?
Yeah.
But there was a heartbeat, and that was, initially it was in China, because China, if you remember in that 2020, they had mitigated COVID a lot faster than everybody else.
Right.
So China started to come back faster than everyone else did. So initially we shifted our focus and our activities and our focus and our money to China and driving our business there. And that kept us going. And that really helped kept the business alive until the other parts of the world started to catch up and come back. It changed. So that was one pivot, shifting the focus, the strategies, the attention to that part of the world and driving the business then. The other thing was when the world did start to come back and it moved digital, as you will know, everyone was buying things online because you couldn't go to the store. And we as a beauty brand were much more built for what I call beauty temples, big department stores, freestanding stores. We had digital outlets, but not as big as they should have been. So that was, again, the shift. And one of the things I was able to do was not only help shift the business to digital channels we already had, but I fast-tracked and rapidly launched new digital channels across the world that we could then leverage to drive our business. So it was essentially like find every luxury pure play, and they were literally luxury plays launching as this was going on and coming in. And I had to get those launched and get that going and drive that. And those were huge parts of our mitigation plan to drive our business. So one, I think understanding where the market was going and where it was initially to keep us going in the short term. Two, diversifying our distribution to ensure that we could capture the consumers where they were now shopping. And three, changing the product mix, because what did change is our makeup business was extremely soft for a while because people weren't buying lipstick, they weren't getting dressed, they weren't going out, they weren't going to work.
Yep.
But something interesting happened, luckily for us. The consumer started buying luxury fragrance. And we were like, wait, you want to buy a high-end luxury fragrance in the middle of a pandemic? Why is this? And all of a sudden, that phenomenon started to take place in China, in Middle East, in Europe, in the United States, and it's still going today. So coming out of COVID and that shift and making us bigger and stronger actually enabled our business to rapidly accelerate when the world would be open. So initially, COVID was scary. We didn't know where it was going. We didn't know where the next dollar was coming from. Luckily, China opened first. Then the rest of the world started to open up. We moved digital, and then we pivoted to different product categories, particularly fragrance, in particular luxury fragrance.
Yep.
And that helped grow our business. And now we're literally setting records in sales every day in Tom Ford.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I look at my drawer and see, I'm like, why is the market having an uptick? And I have like way more of everything that I've ever had, whether that's my skincare fragrance. So it all checks out how fast the market is growing. Despite obviously all the challenges and the headwinds that you mentioned, the Tom Ford brand saw, incredible results in fiscal year 21 and 20, including, and you've also won many prestigious awards. So you're clearly crushing it, even through a global pandemic. But what are you watching and sort of looking forward to now, as we head into 2022?
You mean brand-wise you're talking about, or myself?
Brand-wise, I guess let's make it twofold. Brand-wise and you yourself, like what is getting you excited and what do you think is going to happen this year?
So walk myself into two questions, right? So I think brand-wise, it's understanding what's coming next. The world is rapidly changing, and the dynamics of the world every day, it's something new. Are we going to die because we go to war? Are we going to die because of disease? Are we going to die because of climate change? Are we going to die because of, like, every day it's some new and different challenge. And when you have a business that is 85% international, All of these geopolitical challenges affect your business, whether it's hyperinflation in Turkey or potential war in Russia in that part of the world, or inflation in the United States and Western Europe. All these things you have to account for with your job, and it affects your business because you're a high-end luxury business. So we're like the canary in the coal mine of the beauty business. Everything that happens, we experience it first. So the challenge is what it always is. How do we get bigger? The key challenge, let me go back. The key challenge with a luxury brand like ours, actually, all that stuff is true, but I think the key challenge is this. How do we continue to grow the brand, make it bigger, achieve all of our volume goals while still maintaining the feel and of luxury and rarity and exclusivity that our consumers love us for? That's the magic and the secret sauce, if you will, of the Tom Ford brand and Tom Ford beauty brand as well, is how do we continue to get bigger, better, set new records, but still feel like we're a luxury brand that's intimate and rare and special. And so that's the thing that kind of gets you up every day and drives you and pushes you to do new and different things into the world. So as the world keeps changing, what does that mean for luxury? As you mentioned with inclusivity, luxury is different now. Sustainability is another one. Being an awesome global citizen, the concept of gender and how it's changing, how that changes how you market a beauty brand and a luxury beauty brand. What does that mean for our business? All these things come into play every day. So those are the things I think, the challenges that I look forward to in driving the business. Personally, it's looking at my stock portfolio, not shedding a tear. No, personally, it's how do I get better? How do I keep challenging myself? What's the next greatest and awesome thing I can do with my career? I'm the kind of person that always needs a challenge. I respond well to pressure. So for me, it's what's next? What am I doing with my career? How am I developing? How am I growing? How do I develop and grow with my people? You know, how do I stay a great family person and help my family and my kids grow up? Like all these different things where it's really all about how do we keep getting better and keep doing more great things in the future. So those are the two things.
Are you looking forward to going into the office, or you're appreciating this hybrid world that we're living in?
I appreciate it more now that my kids are back in school. Okay. When it was hybrid and virtual school, that was not sexy. That was not, I do not recommend trying to do kindergarten on a laptop with a 5-year-old boy. I do not recommend that to anyone. But yeah, one thing I did do for me, and I realized this is a first world, I'm very blessed to have had this dynamic, is my job normally requires me to travel 2-3 times a month to international markets. So, and also I left early because I would live in northern New Jersey to get to work. So in reality, I saw my kids on nights and weekends prior to this COVID thing. Now I see them every day. Now I help them with their homework. Now I'm here to kind of drive it. So while it was stressful, I've also probably spent in the past 2 years, maybe a decade's worth of time with my kids that I would not have done. So am I looking forward to going back into the office? Yes, because I think it's dangerous for it to have been so long. I think that's part of the reason why you're seeing this whole great resignation dynamic. Yes, some of it's money and some of it's opportunity and some of it's this, but I also think that when you're virtual, you've reduced everyone to this little square on a computer screen. And if you're just a square on a computer screen, what does it matter what company I work for? What does it matter what the culture is if all you are is something on my computer screen? So I think the fact that we're not in the office, that's one of the negatives, is that lost
human connection.
Yes, human connection. The importance of culture in your organization, what gets you up in the morning, the way you get dressed, seeing people every day, your friendships. I think we've lost a lot of that. Everything's more, Zoom is great and all the other technologies are great, but we've lost the that connection.
Absolutely. Yeah, nothing can replace that. I have one last question for you. Sure. In honor of Black History Month, can you tell us specific ways you engage with Black History Month, either personally or professionally?
You know, one, some of it's learning and unlearning some things that I didn't know I needed to learn and unlearn. So, you know, for instance, I'll give you an example. You know, recently there's a great sociologist professor. Her name is Tressie McMillan Cotton, and spelled with an M on the end. You should follow her on Twitter, read her books. She has this book called Thick, which is probably one of the best books I've ever read in understanding her concepts. So reading that book, she is, and Thick is, especially if you work in the beauty industry, you really appreciate, she comes at everything from the idea of how status and how trying to achieve and drive and capture status drives everything we do. But there's some chapters on Black women, there's some chapters on minorities and why we do the things the way we do them that really kind of open my mind, even though I'm actually a minority. So one, learning and engaging. Two, figuring out and learning and engaging with my kids. I do it on a continuous basis, but also really driving and making sure they are learning, and also finding the mix between what's age appropriate and what's not age appropriate. Because it's, what do you teach a 6-year-old or a 9-year-old about Black history? How much? How hardcore do you get? How deep do you get? All those different things. So for me, it's engaging in those ways. Hopefully that answers the question.
I'm definitely going to read that book. Let me know any others. I'm obviously new to the beauty industry. So definitely just understanding the historical context is really important. So
yeah, her book is not about beauty, but I think when you read the concepts of her book, I highly recommend that book. It'll change the way you view the world and how you view. It'll easily change the way you think about things. Easily.
Thank you for that recommendation. Now, with the time we have left, we will take some questions from the audience, which I will read from the screen. So the first one is, did you always have dreams of becoming SVP to one of the largest beauty companies? If not, capital If, what made you make the move to the beauty industry?
Have I always wanted to be senior vice president? No. I mean, I can't say that when I was coming out of business, you know, or I was a little kid in inner city Philadelphia, that's what the dream was. But the dream was probably, it does fit. It just wasn't this specific. Meaning I knew I wanted to lead a business, hopefully maybe be CEO or CMO of a company, or actually own my own company. Those were the two things, either drive a business or something like that. So it's actually right in line. And probably when I first started becoming senior vice president, when I first started at Tom Ford about 5 or 6 years ago, this was on my vision board, senior vice president at a certain age. So it's kind of cool to actually achieve one of my life's goals. So from a young kid standpoint, no, this wasn't the dream. But from a from a recent business vision board standpoint, this absolutely was it. And what made me move to the beauty industry was, like I said earlier, one of the threads you see in my career is image-based marketing, luxury marketing, and doing brand management in that way. And so to me, because I worked in luxury at Moet Hennessy, because I'd worked in image-based marketing at Coke and Procter & Gamble, I always felt like beauty was another place I could go where my skills and my perspective and how I do things would translate. So I was very open to going after an opportunity in the beauty industry. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I want to just add one more thing because you made the connection. You obviously spent time in beverages. So maybe to the benefit of our audience, if you could just tell them sort of how beauty, specifically fragrances and beverages, liquor has like some sort of a connection. So when you were
I see.
When you were at Diageo, did you think this would lead to this path?
Not necessarily, but I'll give you, it's more direct connection than you might think. If you think about, and actually when I led, it's ironic. Remember I told you earlier I was looking at my career and I was trying to make a transition and I thought I needed to change how I was viewed in the marketplace. It's funny how life works, because I did all that, and then when I was appointed to the vice president of fragrance, global fragrance marketing, I relied heavily on my previous experience at Moet Hennessy and on Hennessy Cognac, because marketing of fragrance is almost exactly the same as marketing a spirit. They are both products where the provenance of the ingredients are central to how you position the product, that experience, how you taste, a wine or a spirit is very similar in terms of how they train you to how you smell a fragrance, the woodies, the ingredients, the whole thing. All those things figure in, where the ingredients are sourced from, and also how you package and market a fragrance is very similar, if not exactly the same, to how you package and market a spirit. They're way more similar than people might give them credit for. So that ability to take one, and also the principles of luxury. And I'll give you one secret principle of luxury that I think I always tell people is, in luxury, pricing is part of your marketing mix. It's not just a financial exercise. So that's probably one of the things I learned at LVMH that I brought here to Tom Ford and really helped me drive my pricing strategy at Tom Ford, which is pricing is as much a marketing strategy exercise as it is a financial exercise. In other words, your pricing dictates your brand and how consumers view your brand and who you are and who your competitive set is. All those things are dictated by what you charge. So those are some of the lessons I learned. If that helps you explain it.
No, it definitely does. Let's see if we have one more question or two more with the time left. Can we put on the screen? Okay. Looking for advice. As a Black business owner, I find the biggest problem among minority business owners is that we don't support each other. I am in the beauty industry trying to expand my brand. I find it's hard to network and support one another. It seems to be more of a competition than a fellowship. How can we bridge this gap?
Ooh, you want to get deep. Okay. I'm gonna give you two answers. One that may be intuitive and one that may not be so intuitive. Because I went through this when I launched my own business. Number one, I think, and this is a mistake I made. I'm not saying you made this. This is a mistake I made. You need to tell people exactly what you want from them. So, meaning, don't have a business and you say, oh, why aren't people buying it? Or why didn't they go out to the store and get it? Say to them, hey, so-and-so, I need you to go to the store and I need you to buy my products. Or I need you to go here and I need you to market. Like, be intentional about what you want and what you expect. And I think you'll get, not 100%, but you'll get a step change in the response level. That was one of the mistakes I made. I was like, my friends never went to buy my stuff. And, you know, I was mad about it. And then I said, no, someone said to me, well, did you literally say to them, I need you to go do this? And I didn't. So the whole, we don't support each other as minorities, I think my answer is twofold. One, be specific about what you want, ask for it, be transparent, right? And two, how do I put this? The people that help you may not always be minorities.
Right.
And the people that believe in you may not always be minorities. This is something I learned in striking when I had my own business. Most of the best opportunities I ever got, I was launching a business, and the people that took the biggest chances on me and the people that pushed my brand and put them in certain places were not minorities. So yes, you need help from your minority compatriots and they need to drive it and all those things. Yes. However, some of your biggest champions may not necessarily be minorities. I hope I put that in the most value-added way possible.
No, I think that's really good advice. That actually kind of leads, I have one question as a follow-up to that. Who is your tribe or your posse, your go-to people, and sort of how do you cultivate those relationships that make you feel supported in your career? And maybe this entrepreneur can, you know, take lessons and insight from how you were able to sort of build a tribe that supported you, that may not necessarily look like you.
You know what? If entrepreneurially, they may not be your friends. They may be loose ties. They may be someone you know because someone introduced you. They may be someone that just sees you're trying to make a way and believes in you. So when I say be intentional, I don't mean like go up to your friends and ask them face to face. I mean like literally, do you post it on your social? I need you to go do this, go buy this, go try this. I'm launching this. If all these people buy it, I get this. So your tribe doesn't necessarily have to be your friends, and they don't necessarily have to be someone you know. They can be some of the loose ties you have on social. especially certain types of social. So I would say that's one thing I would really focus on is building those loose ties and utilizing those. My personal tribe is much, I'm counter to what I just told you, it's much smaller. I have like friends from high school that I've had for years, and we have our own group chat and we keep each other. We know each other back when we were all inner city kids in Philadelphia. We had no money. We didn't have the cool clothes. We were all just these kids trying to make our way in inner city Philadelphia. And we all made it out, all of us. So we're all like these, I'm so proud of my boys and what they've done and how they've done it. And I have another group of friends from business school and who I met there, who I roomed with, who are doing great things as well. So there's probably two groups that I keep up with. One from early in my life and one from the second time in my life at business school. Because business school is such a crucible that it kind of forges new and different relationships because you're looking to pivot your life normally from one thing to the other.
Yeah. No, it's so important to have that. I call it my personal board of directors. Just as companies have that, I think everyone needs to make sure that they have a group of people that they can go to for advice and be not necessarily always, be nice to you, but they'll tell you the truth. And some of my greatest growth has come from people who have challenged me. So it's really important to have that. And not everyone at my personal board of directors or table is African-American. Let's see if we can take one more question with the 4 minutes that we have left. If we could put one on the screen, or otherwise maybe I can take one. So one person is asking, what advice do you have for the next generation who are just starting up? Obviously, things now are very different from when you started your career, but for someone maybe twofolds, coming out of college and maybe another person coming out of their MBA, like what advice would you give them? Oh, too late. Well, we can go this one maybe.
No, I think you have more opportunities available to you than, well, first of all, I would say appreciate where you sit in the world order. You sit, I know it's perspective. I know the world is telling you everything's terrible and it's the worst it's ever been, and racism is the worst it's ever been, and all these different things. And they are terrible and they're hard. But I will also give you a different perspective. You sit at the apex of civilization, right? And one of the greatest situations of all time. We all, I do, you do, stand on the shoulders of giants. Our parents, generation before them, the generation before them, they built everything and went through all these different things. So I could be senior vice president of international Estee Lauder, which would not be possible, my parents' generation, right? So understand how lucky we are. And why do I tell you that? Because I think if you look at it that way, you then open your mind to the possibilities and open your mind to what's really before you, which is, I think, some of the greatest opportunities in the history of mankind. I really do. It may sound hyperbole, but you can do it through social, you can do it through the internet, you can do it through YouTube, you can do it on, there's so many different ways to make your way in the world compared to where it was before, that if you look at it through the lens of opportunity, I think it will change how you engage. If you want more specific about more career hardcore, I would say never stop improving, never stop learning, never stop looking to get better. And there was a question there about preparation to apply McKinsey, always keep how you use social. Use social as a way to understand where the culture is going and what's coming next, and shift your attention and learn. So for instance, a perfect example of that now is cryptocurrency and NFTs. Now, whether you think it's a big bunch of hooey and it's all this, or you think it's the next coming of the next revolution of the world, either way, go learn about it. Go figure it out. See what makes it this thing that everyone's talking about, and then take those lessons and apply them to your day-to-day. It may not be exactly everything that you learn, but for instance, with me, it's well, how do we take that lessons of NFTs and bring that into Tom Ford, or something like that? So social has its own ills, again, but view it through the lens of opportunity and see, well, why are things moving the way they're moving? Don't just say, well, oh, it's terrible why they're moving that way. Why are they moving that way, right? You see now that this is controversy with Joe Rogan and podcasts and Spotify, but the underlying thing of that is the breakdown of the gatekeeper. And there used to be only a few entities that gave you information. Now there are thousands, and they're all in podcasts, right? That's how people get their information now, right? So if that's the case, what does that mean for you and your business? Does that mean you need to have a podcast? That means you need to be attached to a podcast? Does that need to attach to a certain personality? So it's not necessarily the phenomena itself that you have to do, but to be aware of it and understand the underlying thing that's driving its adoption can help you in terms of your business and how you drive your business. I hope that answers the question and gets across the person who's asking.
Yeah, I think it does. It's just like our opportunities are limitless. And I mean, even myself, I didn't grow up in the US. I grew up in a different country. So I think that the challenge with this for this generation now is just staying focused and being intentional, because to your point, like really you can do anything and you can get information anywhere. So it's really important to be intentional and focused as you sort of, start your career. I think we're almost—
One more thing. Don't let yourself be gaslit into giving up. That's really what I'm trying to crystallize. Like they'll tell you, so they'll tell you it's terrible and you can't be done and racism and no one wants you and people make decisions. And that's probably all true. However, that doesn't mean you don't keep pushing and trying, because you only need one and you only need to get in one place. And my example of when I got to Tom 40, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I was at a certain age. My business had failed. I was $10,000 in debt. I could easily have said, oh, it's just not going to, I didn't make it. But you keep pushing and you keep pushing and you keep driving, and then it opens up. And next thing you know, boom, you're where I'm sitting. So that's what I'm trying to get across. I hope that's not too high-minded and fluffy, but I hope it comes across as being value-added.
It absolutely is, Dexter. I mean, this is, for me, our conversation has been so informative. I feel inspired by your journey. Truly, I look up to you, and I've learned a lot, and I hope that the audience learned as well. And we should do this more often. I need to know about these gaslighting things that you mentioned that we'll talk about offline. But I want to now turn it over to Vinetta for some closing remarks. There she is. Okay.
This was fabulous. I mean, seriously, I want to know about the things in the background. So call me in the call. So I definitely want to thank you, Dexter and Betty from Estee Lauder. This was so awesome. This rich conversation around fashion, beauty, and the power of Black. Some of the notes that I took, first of all, Dexter, thank you for being a National BLACKMBA alum. We heart you. Also, cliff notes are a real thing. He spoke about leveraging opportunity and owning your leadership, just awesome. Relax, relate, and refresh yourself, driving diversity, challenging yourself to develop and grow. Some amazing content, amazing dialogue between Betty and Dexter. And, I want to say they closed it out with that, being intentional. And I loved Betty's being, having your personal board of directors to really help guide you and give you the real of what's happening, in your space. So now, if you are interested in any career opportunities with the Estee Lauder companies, kindly go to the Expo section of the Hopin and click on the interest alert for recruiters. And after we close this portion of the event, you can do that. Now, recruiters will be following up with people after their event, not today, so be on the lookout. Now, for everyone, it is time for our virtual one-on-one speed networking. So please click the networking feature on the right side of the screen, and you will be connected to various attendees of today's event up until 8 p.m. tonight. Now, on behalf of our chapter president, Norvell Barrington, and our chapter board, my name is Vinetta Hawkins, the Director of Business Investments and Partnerships at the Metro New York chapter of the National Black MBA Association. And we thank you for joining us for tonight's event. And now it is time for virtual networking. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.